I would have never thought that. I would have never thought he would did something like that. Not like this. The look, it told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
A winner in this, and I'll be praying for everyone watching this, everyone affected by this and impacted by this.
On March 25th, 2025, the sweet Dana Vanessa Jenkins celebrated on Facebook with a simple post that read, "My baby is home. Lord, I thank you." Her 25-year-old son, Duron Dante Jenkins, had just walked out of prison after serving over 3 years. 6 days later, both Dana and her 15-year-old son, Darren Cox, would be found dead in their Wilson, North Carolina home, and Duron would be charged with their murders. Let me take you back to understand how this family tragedy unfolded, because the 6 days between Duron's release and the murders contain red flags that in hindsight paint a chilling picture of what was coming. Duron Dante Jenkins was born around 2000, making him 25 years old when this tragedy occurred. His documented criminal activity began in his early 20s, concentrated in Wilson County. In September 2020, he was convicted of misdemeanor charges including violation of a protection order, willful or wanton injury to real property, and second-degree trespass. He received a suspended sentence and probation. Protection orders in North Carolina typically stem from domestic violence situations requiring evidence of potential harm. While the protected party's identity remains private, this conviction fuels questions about possible family tensions that existed long before his release. By December 2021, Duron's legal troubles escalated dramatically. He was convicted of felony larceny of firearms, multiple counts of breaking and entering motor vehicles, and malicious conduct by a prisoner. That last charge is particularly telling because it means he was acting out even while incarcerated, showing behavioral issues that extended beyond his original crimes. These weren't violent crimes against people, but they landed him in state prison for what would be approximately 3 years and 3 months. During Duron's incarceration, his contact with the family had been limited, so much that the family hadn't been in touch with Duron for years. So when March 25, 2025 rolled around and he was granted parole, it represented a fresh start, or at least that's what Dana Jenkins hoped. Dana was 50 years old, described by everyone who knew her as warm, hardworking, and always smiling. She was deeply involved at Mount Moriah Community Church in Wilson, where her faith community knew her as someone who prioritized her children above everything else. Dana had a daughter in addition to her 2 sons. When Duron was released, Dana's Facebook post reflected pure maternal joy and relief. She thanked God for bringing her baby home, and in that moment, she had every reason to believe the worst was behind them. But Dana's cousin, Wanila Cornegay, who lived right next door on Snowden Drive, noticed something off almost immediately. Cornegay described Duron as fidgety, anxious, unable to stay still. She told reporters he looked like a crazy person trying to get ready to do something, like premeditation.
You could see it, the look, it told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
She repeatedly emphasized to news outlets, the look on his face, he's getting ready to do something. You could see it. The look, it told you everything. But I had no idea you were getting ready to do what you did. Cornegay also revealed something else that worsens this case. She claimed that Duran's prior imprisonment included time for beating his mom up, though official records don't confirm a direct assault conviction. What we do know is that his 2020 protection order violation could relate to such issues, as these orders often arise from threats or violence within households. Whether or not Duran had previously been violent toward Dana, the fact that this allegation existed in the community suggests there was a history of conflict that Dana may have been hoping to move past. Meanwhile, 15-year-old Darren Cox was living his life focused on faith and family. Darren was a student at Bedingfield High School and was actively involved at Mount Moriah Community Church, where he served on the media team, played music, and aspired to become a pastor. By all accounts, Darren was exactly the kind of young person any community would be proud of. He drew strength from his faith despite whatever challenges his family faced.
Especially Darren, he meant the world to all of us. Our teens here, they're grieving.
Over the next several days following Duran's release, the household on Snowden Drive seemed to be functioning normally on the surface. But beneath that surface, Cornegay's observations suggested something darker was brewing. For someone who had just regained their freedom after 3 years behind bars, Duran didn't seem relieved or grateful. Instead, he appeared troubled in a way that made her cousin nervous. On Sunday, March 30th, around 8:30 p.m., Cornegay last saw Dana and Darren alive. She spoke with them briefly, and nothing seemed immediately alarming about the interaction itself. What happened after that conversation remains unclear, but Cornegay later claimed that the victims were stabbed to death around that time, though official reports have not confirmed the exact cause of death. Most news outlets reported gunshot wounds, creating some discrepancy in the details. The timeline shifts to the early morning hours of March 31st. Around 3 a.m., Cornegay spotted Duran on the porch of the family home. What she saw chilled her. He appeared disheveled, looking like he'd just gotten out of mental ward, and critically, his hand was bandaged and appeared cut up. His demeanor suggested to her that he had done something terrible, but Cornegay didn't yet know what. Later that Monday morning, another red flag appeared. Cornegay noticed Dana's car parked in an unusual way. She told reporters she never parks this way. That was the first indication something's not right. For someone who lived right next door and saw her cousin's daily routines, this detail stood out as significant. The day continued with an eerie quiet from the Jenkins household. By late afternoon, around 5:20 to 5:30 p.m., Wilson Police Department officers responded to what was described as an unknown type call at the residence in the 1700 block of Snowden Southeast. The vague nature of that call suggests either a concerned neighbor or possibly a 911 hang-up. What officers found when they arrived was horrific.
Just released from prison last week, is now charged with killing his mother and younger brother after they were found dead in their Wilson County home on Monday.
Today, a family member who lives right next door is talking with WITN. Amarachi Uche is live in Wilson with more. And Amarachi, what did they tell you?
Yeah, Darian Jenkins is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder after police say he killed his mother and younger brother. They were found dead here in this home behind me. Now, the cousin of the mother is speaking to us, trying to figure out how this could have happened.
I always smile. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
That's how Wanilia Cornegay describes her cousin, Dana Jenkins. Now she is left shocked and hurt after learning Jenkins was found dead in her Wilson home alongside her 15-year-old son. The suspect in these horrific murders, Jenkins's older son.
I would have never thought that. I would have never thought he would do something like that. Not like this.
Police say on Monday they went to this home on Snowden Drive shortly before 5:30 p.m. and found 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and a 15-year-old boy dead. According to Cornegay, the 15-year-old's name is Darren. Tuesday, police say they have the son of Dana and the older brother to Darian Jenkins, in custody for these deaths. Cornigi says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Darian.
You could see it, the look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
This church is where Dana and Darren found comfort. Bishop Sherman Blandon says he knew them well.
It has been very difficult, confusing, troubling.
Cornigi remembers speaking to her cousin Sunday night and seeing police around the building the next day, telling her that 2 of her family members were now gone. The 25-year-old now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, leaving Cornigi wondering how this could have happened.
Couldn't figure out why he did it and what for.
Cornigi says they just had 5 deaths in the family, so these murders only add to that pain. She says she's not going to take it one day at a time and remember the good times she had with her cousin. Reporting live in Wilson, Amarachi Uche, WITN News.
All right, thank you, Amarachi. Now, records show the 25-year-old Jenkins was released from state prison 1 week ago after serving time for larceny of firearms and several breaking and enterings of vehicles convictions. Jenkins is now being held without bond.
Inside the home, they discovered the bodies of Dana Vanessa Jenkins and Darren Cox, both pronounced dead at the scene. The scene was so devastating that when cleaning crews arrived the following day, within hours of discovering the bodies, police arrested Daron Dante Jenkins and charged him with first-degree murder. The arrest was described as occurring without incident, meaning Daron didn't resist. He was transported to Wilson County Jail where he would remain.
Now to the double murder in Wilson County. We're learning the suspect is charged with killing his own brother and his mother. Police identifying the victims as 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Darren Cox. Jenkins' 25-year-old son, Darian Jenkins, is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims were found inside a home yesterday evening on Snowden Drive. Cindy Bay has new reaction from the family.
Absolutely. This is on Snowden Drive where we are right now. We have seen cleaning crews going into the home where Wilson police say this happened. They've been entering with hazmat suits. You can see the green truck right there. And we learned from our reporting that Daron Jenkins, the suspect in this case, had been released from prison less than a week before he's accused of killing his mother and his brother.
Loved ones are reeling from the death of a mother and son who police say were found dead inside their Wilson home on Monday.
She was a very sweet person. Always smiled. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
Juanelia Carnegie lives next door to her cousin Dana Jenkins, who was allegedly killed by her older son, 25-year-old Darian Jenkins. Jenkins is also accused of killing his 15-year-old brother, a Wilson County school student who is being remembered by Beddingfield High School and Mount Moriah Community Church in Wilson.
We want to show you a photo of Jenkins. He appeared in court today. He's facing 2 counts of first-degree murder. Wilson police responded to this home on Snowden Drive around 5:30 yesterday and found 2 people dead inside. Today, we have learned those 2 people have been identified as Jenkins' mom, 50-year-old Dana Jenkins, and his 15-year-old brother. He is a juvenile, so Wilson police are not releasing his name at this time. But we have reached out to friends of the family and to their church, who they were very involved with, and they said those 2 people will be loved and missed by so many.
Remember how I mentioned at the beginning that Daron had just been released 6 days earlier? This is where that timeline becomes absolutely critical to understanding why this case generated such widespread attention and sparked difficult conversations about the criminal justice system. On April 1st, 2025, Daron made his first court appearance in Wilson County District Court. This was a standard initial hearing for advisement of charges and bond determination. He was ordered held without bond, though one local report from the Wilson Times indicated a $2.5 million secured bond, with $1.5 million for 1 count and $1 million for the second, possibly reflecting a district court adjustment. No plea was entered at that initial appearance, which is typical in felony cases at this stage. As of today, the case appears to remain in pre-trial stages, which isn't unusual for murder cases. These proceedings can extend 12 to 24 months or longer in North Carolina, particularly if there are evidentiary reviews, mental health assessments, or complex prosecutorial preparations involved. For capital-eligible homicides like this one, where 2 victims were killed, the legal process becomes even more intensive. But while the legal wheels turned slowly, the community was left reeling immediately. Mount Moriah Community Church, where Dana and Darren had been active members, held funeral services shortly after the murders. Pastor Sherman Blandon called the tragedy very difficult, confusing, and troubling, emphasizing how the community struggled to process what had happened. The congregation remembered Dana as someone whose warmth touched everyone she encountered. She was consistently described as a person who always smiled and hugged others, someone who worked hard to support her family despite whatever challenges they faced. Darren's memory was equally powerful within the church community, where his aspirations to follow a pastoral path and his involvement in church media and music left a lasting impression on the teens and adults who knew him.
Couldn't figure out why he did it and what for.
Cornegay revealed that the family had already experienced 5 deaths recently, making these murders even more devastating. The Jenkins family had been dealing with profound grief even before this tragedy struck, and now they were left trying to process how one of their own could have committed such an act. No official motive has been released by Wilson authorities, which is standard procedure while investigations continue, but the lack of clear answers hasn't stopped speculation about what could have driven Duran to allegedly kill his mother and brother just days after she celebrated his homecoming. Family members and community sources have pointed to potential post-incarceration adjustment issues or unresolved domestic tensions. Cornegay's earlier observations about his disturbing behavior support theories that Duran was experiencing some form of mental health crisis or had pre-existing issues that were exacerbated by his time in prison. Research consistently shows that incarceration can worsen mental health conditions, particularly when issues go untreated during imprisonment. Studies referenced in discussions around this case indicate that untreated mental health problems during incarceration can significantly increase recidivism and violence risks. When inmates are released without adequate support systems, therapy, or monitoring, the transition back into society can trigger crises that lead to tragic outcomes. In Duran's case, he went from serving 3 years for property crimes to being thrust back into a family environment where, according to neighbors, there may have been pre-existing tensions. This case also isn't unique in its pattern, though it's certainly extreme in its outcome. There have been similar cases of released offenders committing murders shortly after their release. One particularly relevant comparison is Gregory Green from Michigan, who murdered his pregnant wife in 1991. He stabbed her multiple times in their Detroit home, then called police to confess while waiting for his arrest.
19-year-old Chadney Allen, his 17-year-old sister Kara, murdered in their basement this morning. Police sources telling Local 4 News they were shot execution style. 2 other children, half-sisters, placed in this car, a hose put inside from the exhaust, and the children killed with carbon monoxide. Then their bodies returned to their beds. This was the scene Dearborn Heights police responded to after the father called them this morning.
Father called police, telling the dispatcher on the line, "I just killed my whole family." So police came out here, and here's a look at this live scene behind us, what police are working with. It's been a pretty slow scene, a very calm and quiet scene, because police already have their suspect in custody. In fact, he was waiting for them on the porch when they got here at about 1:20 this morning. Police got inside that home, and they found 2 teenagers shot and killed. They were dead in the basement. 2 other small children in the home and a mother were taken to the hospital. Those 2 small children did die. That mother is alive. She's listed in critical condition. We're told that she was stabbed and shot. So that man gave himself up to police right away. We've been speaking with neighbors out here. They tell us that this family was quiet.
Faith Green survived the attempt on her life last night. Her children did not. 4-year-old Kaylee and 5-year-old Coy Green died inside this car parked in the driveway. Their father allegedly hooked up a hose, started the car, and ran the exhaust fumes inside. After the children were dead, we're told, he carried their dead bodies back into their bedrooms and into bed. Police found 17-year-old Kara Allen and her older brother, 19-year-old Chadney Allen, known as CJ, bound and shot execution style in the basement. They were Faith Harris's children from her first marriage. Dearborn Heights Police Captain Michael Petrie described the early morning scene that left first responders shaken to the core.
Convicted of second-degree murder in 1992, Green received 15 to 25 years.
4 children. Gregory Green admitted he murdered his 2 children, 2 stepchildren, and brutally attacked their mother, Faith Green. This happened back in September, you may remember, in Dearborn Heights. Green showed up in court today where the judge learned that experts have determined Green is competent to stand trial. He cut a deal with prosecutors and admitted his guilt.
Those guys, carbon monoxide, and Karen shot down.
Okay, you indicated by carbon monoxide in my shotgun, is that correct, sir?
What makes Green's case particularly disturbing is that he was denied parole 4 times before finally being released in 2008 after serving 16 years. The parole board had concerns about his risk level, but ultimately support from community leaders, including Pastor Fred Harris, who wrote letters advocating for his release, influenced the decision. This wasn't just a bureaucratic approval. People in positions of trust vouched for him. After his release, Green remarried in 2010, marrying Faith Harris Green, who happened to be Pastor Harris's daughter. They had 2 daughters together, and Faith had 2 children from a previous relationship. For 8 years, it seemed like Green had successfully rehabilitated. Then, on September 21, 2016, he asphyxiated his daughters, ages 5 and 3, with par exhaust in their garage, shot his stepchildren, ages 19 and 17, in the head, and assaulted Faith, forcing her to witness what he had done before calling 911. Faith survived a gunshot wound. Green pleaded guilty to 4 murders, torture, and assault in 2017, receiving life without parole. The Green case sparked outrage because the person who advocated most strongly for his release lost his own grandchildren to Green's violence. It raised serious questions about whether someone who commits familicide can ever truly be rehabilitated, and whether parole boards give enough weight to the specific pattern of family violence versus other types of homicide. Another parallel case involves Travis Lewis in Arkansas, who at 16 years old murdered Sally Snowden McKay, 75, and Joseph Lee Baker, 52, at Horseshoe Lake in 1996. He initially claimed it was a burglary gone wrong, but pleaded guilty and served 23 years. When he was paroled in 2018, something remarkable happened. Martha McKay, Sally's daughter and the victim's family member, befriended Lewis out of a belief in forgiveness and rehabilitation. She hired him as a handyman at the very same family property where he had killed her mother. In March 2020, following a dispute over missing $10,000, Lewis stabbed Martha to death in her bedroom, wrapped her body, and attempted to burn it before fleeing. He drowned in the lake during a police pursuit. Martha's act of grace and forgiveness cost her her life, and the tragedy demonstrated how proximity between victims' families and released offenders can create dangerous situations, even when intentions are compassionate. These cases, while uncommon, reveal critical patterns. Broader data from UK and US sources indicate 30 to 40 cases of released homicide offenders recommitting murder over a decade, often within years of release, with family violence histories elevating risks significantly. The common thread isn't just that these individuals reoffended, but that they returned to the same type of violence that originally landed them in prison. Green killed family members twice. Lewis killed within the same victim family twice. This suggests that for certain offenders, the underlying issues that drove their initial crimes remain unresolved despite years of incarceration. There's also the case of Albert Flick from Maine, who murdered his wife in 1979. When he was released from prison in 2000, authorities deemed him too old to kill again at the age of 70. In 2018, he stabbed and killed another woman, proving that age alone is not a reliable indicator of reduced violence risk.
Is this 77-year-old man too old to be a killer? No. Albert Flick stabbed a mom to death in front of her 2 children. Surveillance video shows Flick pacing outside a laundromat in Lewiston, Maine. Moments later, he stabbed the young mom, Kimberly Dobby, 11 times. A jury convicted him in less than an hour.
We find him guilty.
What's outraging so many people is Flick's monstrous history. In 1979, he murdered his wife, stabbed her more than a dozen times in front of her daughter. Flick was released for good behavior after serving 21 years in jail, but 7 years later, he stabbed his girlfriend with a fork, only to be released again. In 2010, he put another woman in a headlock and hit her repeatedly with the butt end of a knife. The judge who sentenced Flick to just 4 years in prison for that crime remarked, at some point, Mr. Flick is going to age out of his capacity to engage in this conduct. Now, Flick has proved evil is evil, no matter the age.
These examples demonstrate critical importance of thorough risk assessments and continued monitoring of released offenders, particularly those with histories of violence or domestic issues. They also highlight systemic failures in evaluating whether someone has genuinely addressed the root causes of their violent behavior, or whether they've simply served their time without meaningful change. Social media reactions to Duran's case reflected a mixture of anger, sadness, and frustration with systemic failures. Posts on platforms like X highlighted questions about prison mental health gaps and the risks of abrupt family reintegration without support. Some commenters argued that the system failed him, while others focused on the tragedy experienced by Dana and Darren, who deserved better protection. This case exposes fundamental questions we need to be asking about how we prepare incarcerated individuals for release. Are mental health evaluations adequate before parole is granted? Are there sufficient community resources to support ex-offenders as they transition back into family life? What warning signs should families watch for when welcoming home someone who has been incarcerated? In Cornegay's case, she noticed red flags immediately. She saw the concerning behavior, the disturbing facial expressions, and the agitation. But what could she have done with those observations? At what point does concern become actionable? These are difficult questions that this case forces us to confront. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.